All right, guys, my name is Drue, and this is
Brad?
And together we are the Unidentified Flying Podcast. The reason for the moniker is we kind of don't want to, I would say, be tied down to a particular genre. We want to be, if somebody were to see us, they don't know exactly how to explain us, because
We're unexplained.
Exactly. We could be, one day we could talk about sports, which I think we may do here shortly. We could talk about pop culture, movies, politics, religion, the paranormal, space, technology.
The weirdest local thing that nobody cares about, but maybe they do.
Yeah. Maybe if somebody's listening to this across the country and you want to hear about some weird shit, and by the way, we live in Oklahoma, so, wherever, all the weirdness in the country, at least, I think you could maybe say that the confluence point is the very center of the country. Yeah. This is where the drain finally.
Crossroads.
This is where the drain.
This is where the crossroads happen.
Yeah. So, and buckle the Bible belt and all that. Yeah, so there's a lot of religious stuff. Not particularly religious myself, just as a disclaimer.
Yeah, I'm not really either, but I know a lot about it. And
so there you go. And we can get more into that specifically later when we actually tackle a religious topic. But I think other than that, just kind of a general, this is who we are, this is what we intend to do. I think maybe dive into our first topic, which locally for us, our only professional team in any of the major sports.
Sadly, yeah.
The Oklahoma City Thunder, which we feel there's a bit of a void in, not necessarily coverage. I mean, you can turn on the radio or the TV and find out what's the score, how many did Durant score, how many did Westbrook score. But beyond that, just how, like you said, like when, off the air here when we were talking, you said that you're a big NBA fan. I'm a fan of the NBA, but honestly, I'm not as nearly as big of a fan as you. My fandom with the NBA is admittedly the fact that we do have a professional team here.
It's like a team. It's newer.
Yeah, I have somebody to root for, because before I didn't really care. I mean, I'd hone in on a few players that were like, yeah, I like that player. That's a cool player. I hope they get a ring. But now I'm like, no,
that's kind of what the NBA is too. Like, you're looking at one guy. Like, I'm a Kobe fan. I might not necessarily be like a Laker fan or anything, but
because if Kobe left and went to the Mavericks, you'd be like, now I'm rooting for the Mavericks because I'm a Kobe fan.
Yeah, especially if they're good.
Yeah, I gotcha. Like the Jordan fans when they were rooting for the Wizards, just because they're a Jordan fan.
Michael Jordan. Yeah.
So, admittedly, that's why I became a fan, and also because you got me involved in fantasy basketball. Yeah. So I have dogs in the fight now, and I've learned more about individual players that I just knew by name before.
Yeah. Who's that role player on Denver Nuggets on the bench?
Exactly.
Who's that guy?
Now I kind of care. But before I'd be like, I just see a football highlight because I'm interested in football, and in between the football highlights, they'll show some basketball, and I'm like, okay, I know who the big names are. Now I actually know a bit more than that. But like you were saying earlier, even for someone who's a big basketball fan like yourself, you don't really know what's going on a quote unquote local level with, say, the Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah, you don't know who some of the starters are.
Yeah, like
you might not even know like who's the main two guys on this team.
Yeah,
who that we're playing tonight, and it might not even be like like the nobody team of that league, but they could be a fairly well-off team, and you just people just don't follow it that much. And you got to think it is a 82-game season. There are Wednesday nights where they play games in the middle of November, and no one cares.
Yeah,
and honestly they shouldn't in a way. But sometimes that does mean something, That's kind of the cool thing about basketball, too, is, like, it's a very personable type of sport where, like, there's only 5 people on the court.
Yeah.
There's only, maybe one guy can just tip the entire balance of a season, a team. That's it. And you're wanting, kind of like how you were saying, like, you follow that one guy. Man, that one guy goes down in injury.
Yeah.
That's it for a team. You see you next year if he's out, if it's bad enough.
Yeah, and so at least as far as the Thunder are concerned, the two big guys, everybody who knows anything about basketball and sports in general, they know Durant, Westbrook.
Yeah.
And that may be, for a lot of people, that may be the extent of their knowledge, and plus also there's all the talk: are we going to get to? Is Durant going to stay? Is Westbrook going to stay? And all of the talk about, oh, he's going to go to L.A. No, he's going to go to D.C. One of them's going to go to New York. All this sort of stuff. They want to play
Donovan's a first-year head coach. All that stuff.
Yeah. They want to play with Harden again or something.
We shouldn't have traded Harden.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's what everyone's talking about. We should have traded Harden.
Yeah.
Which there's some rights and wrongs about all that.
I mean, I agree. Like the whole because I know that's Bill Simmons. That's his thing. It's like he always harps on it. And again, I mean, I don't have anything against Bill Simmons, honestly, but I think he harps on it too much. But I'll agree, and I've talked to you about this, and a friend of ours I've talked about who's a big fan of the Thunder and basketball in general, and was a big Harden fan. It's not that we shouldn't have traded Harden. We shouldn't have traded Harden when we did. Like, we could have kept Harden for another year and then probably had to part ways with him because there's just no way we don't. I mean,
that's a fair point.
Big market team would have trouble keeping all three: Westbrook, Durant, and Harden.
And we wouldn't have gotten because the reason we moved him is we got a trade out of this whole situation.
Yeah, I can't remember who the hell did we get.
Well, you got to think we got like Jeremy Lamb, and I think we ended up getting Kevin Martin out of the deal and some draft picks. One of those draft picks turned into Steven Adams,
which. Adams.
So you got to think. I mean, you're like, maybe you don't get him in the future.
Sure.
Type of thing.
Which, and I think because from what I understand, Harden had gone to the Thunder and basically been like, and this is all I am not by no means quoting anybody or reporting ironclad facts here, but my understanding is that Harden essentially went to the Thunder and said, "I'll sign on for another year. The only thing I want is a no trade clause." So basically, I'm not.
Well, that was going to be his extension. He had another year anyway.
Okay.
Like he would have played. He would have played the rest of that year, and the reason we moved him is because, well, if he plays out that year and we don't move him,
then we can't get. We don't get anything for him. He just goes in free agency.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he might stay. He might not. And like you said, we don't get.
And supposedly the only thing we had to give him was a no trade clause for that extra year. So what we could have done is kept him for the next year, and then traded him if we want, because we still had him for a whole nother year after that. We could have offset everything by a year.
Yeah, and we were trying to sign an extension. Like we were trying to give him was it 3 or 4 years for $53 million? And
I'm not sure exactly the numbers.
And that's what the total contract. But it was like if you sign an extension, it was going to be somewhat long term. So we were trying to lock him up for more than just the next year.
Okay.
We were trying to go past that, and then you add all well, he wanted the no trade clause, and then did he really only want that amount of money? Like if they'd only given him $3 million more, he would have said, yeah, sure. Versus,
I mean, what did Houston give him? 80?
Well, they gave him 5 years, 85 million.
Yeah.
They gave him a max contract. So it was he got another year. He got $30 million more. It wasn't like he just skipped town on a few pennies and dimes over here, And plus, he got to go be the guy on a team.
Yeah, And he's been pretty successful. Now, you could say Houston has its problems, and Houston does have its problems.
I've got my criticisms of Harden too.
But overall, James Harden is a solid starter. I mean, he
was runner-up in MVP last year.
Yeah, so I mean, he's you can't say that you can't build a team around him.
No, yeah.
I don't know that they've necessarily
somebody has.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's the best. I don't know if they've done the best job of building a team around him, but nonetheless, Harden has shown that yes, you can build a team around me, and it will be at least decent. Yeah. We're not going to be doormats. So
no,
I mean, hell, Houston didn't they just beat the Thunder the other night? Some people have them
picked to winning, they're going to at least the Western Conference Finals, if not winning the West. So I'm like, that's a bit of a stretch, I think.
And didn't Houston just beat the Thunder? Isn't that one of their 3 losses?
Yeah.
Because speaking of the Thunder, they're
Houston
2-3,
started out 0-3, and they were hoping not to go 0-4, and they beat us.
And we may add a little. What would the term be? A little header in before this to say, just to kind of give frame of reference, because I don't know when we'll post this, but it's currently Sunday, November 8th, 2015. So
it's an early season. It just got started.
Yeah. But just to show how relevant this may be, we're talking about the Thunder being 2-3 right now. By the time this gets posted, maybe they're even worse or just fine. Who knows?
Or just treading water.
Or maybe they're right at 500. Who knows? Well, let's go ahead and talk then about. So the Thunder sitting at 2-3. Are you worried?
Not really. I mean, it's so early, and just from the first few games, this is what I took from it. We played the Spurs first game.
Yep.
And we won.
Yep.
And that's great by itself. But what I liked is like we had a new coach, first time in the NBA.
Yep.
Not just a new coach. Like he's a brand new coach in the league, and I saw a lot of things that we never would have even...
That Scott Brooks would have never done.
He would have never done, and not only that, like, that our roster wouldn't have allowed. Yeah. Like, we didn't have the players before to do this type of thing. A lot of the talk leading up to this year on Oklahoma City, especially from, like, a national standpoint, is, well, we signed Cantor, and we had, plus we traded for Cantor last year. And... he's great on offense, but God, he's horrible on defense, and we're going to have to start him. That's just abysmal, and especially since we paid him so much money, he's definitely got to start, right? Well, that's not...
Yeah, that's not the case.
Nobody's got a gun to your head saying, hey, you have to start Cantor.
Yeah, now granted, I mean, if you don't give him minutes, it doesn't make a lot of sense to pay him the money you did. But that doesn't mean you have to start him.
You asked me if I was worried. I'll say no because, I saw some great lineups when we played the Spurs. And... we kind of played that. To me, it seemed like we were playing that game like it was almost like the difference between a regular season game and like a playoff game of basketball.
Sure.
Where like certain people on our roster didn't even get in the game.
Yeah.
Because we were keeping the rotation tight.
Yeah.
And then now, like afterwards, that game's gone on, and then I think we played Orlando, won in double overtime, and then we went past that, and we've lost 3 straight. But I've seen a lot of people come in and out. And I've seen a lot of different things as far as lineup goes, which might be just depends on who we're playing. It also could be we're experimenting a little. Just that happening is more than would have ever happened with Scott Brooks. Not to dog on him. I love Scott Brooks.
And, I like him too.
But he was limited in how he was limited. That was it. He was a definite type of.
He was a player's.
He's a player's coach. Yeah. That's right. He was a player himself. He knows a lot about the game. He has. Did
he play in the NBA?
Yeah, of course.
Really?
Yeah. He played for the Rockets.
Scott Brooks did.
Yeah,
I never knew that.
Yeah, when they won like the title back.
Oh, really? With
Hakeem
Olajuwon and all that. Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Not know. Are you sure?
I'm not kidding, dude.
I'm about to.
Granted, I think he probably played on other teams because that's how.
I didn't
NBA
even
players
know
bounce
he played
around.
he looks like he's 3 feet tall.
He was a point guard.
I know Muggsy Bogues.
He was like one of those little point guard guys, dishing it around. He wasn't slam dunking it on anybody, I don't think. But
what?
He was a little guy.
I had never known that he.
Yeah, he was a player, and that's like I said, not to dog on him, but it was just you've built a young team up. And got them to that level, and just maybe having a coach that has a little more basketball coaching experience. Maybe not even NBA, because that's why we got, a guy that wasn't even in the NBA coaching wise. You get something like that, and you get a little bit different, strategy and lineup. I mean, we would. This is what was horrible about Scott Brooks, and we still do this right now, so it's a little early. But we would go into a timeout. Into the game, that's usually when you're drawing up a play, and we're trying to hey, we need a play here to make this shot to tie it up or keep the lead, and it's the last possession or next to last possession, that type of thing. And it was like we'd come out of timeout, and the play was we had no play, and we just toss it out to Westbrook and Durant, which is great in itself, because they're amazing. But that was it. And a lot of people criticized him for, when we went to the finals and we're playing Kendrick Perkins and he's obviously not doing very well and we need to change something. And do we change? Nah, because we always keep this guy in because I feel like it.
Yeah.
And that's what kept Scott Brooks back, is him just not being very flexible, not being very innovative in lineups, that type of thing. And that's what I liked about just some of the things I've seen from Billy Donovan is...
Yeah, I like that first game, the San Antonio game. I mentioned I didn't watch the whole game, but I happened to watch a stretch of it. And there was a point in time when we had on the floor, we had we had Cantor, Ibaka, Augustin, Waiters, and I don't even know who our fifth guy was out there. But it was a pretty good lineup, and I was like, man, I don't think we would have ever seen that lineup with Scott Brooks.
Yeah, it might have been Durant.
I mean, it's almost kind of like, you know how they talked a lot about Popovich last year, which, I mean, and Popovich has always done this, and maybe I just heard it last year. Like he would just tinker and he was like almost kind of like a mad scientist with the lineups he would throw out there and just see, how does this lineup work? Hey, I put this lineup out there for 6 minutes. It worked pretty good. Not going to do it again until 30 games later. I'll throw it out there when I think, oh, here's a good situation for it. And like he knows in his head already, he's got like, yeah, I know how this particular lineup works with, say, Duncan, Patty Mills.
That Splitter.
Splitter. Both Duncan and Splitter on the floor at the same time, maybe. Just some weird lineup that you never really see. And then, but Popovich will throw it out there for, usually it's a game that they're winning handily. But he'll throw these weird lineups out there just to see, let me see how it works.
Yeah.
Let me see how it works against maybe another team starting five. And then I'll just put that in my back pocket if I ever need it again. It's almost like he's got this sort of Rolodex of lineups. So he'd be like, oh, hey,
exactly.
Here's a good time for this lineup. And it's different. It's not exactly big. It's not exactly small.
See if it works in this situation.
Yeah, and I always thought that was kind of cool that he would do that.
The Thunder, how we were, is like we brought this guy in here. We bring this other guy in here.
Yeah.
Every game almost. There might be a little bit of difference.
It was very rigid.
It was very rigid. We might bring, like I said, it might change one or two things here or there, but that was about it. Not very exploratory as far as like, hey, you know, like you said, just throw this guy in and see how he does.
Now, Donovan may settle into a rigid lineup. We'll see. But so far it looks like...
Because we do have some new players.
Yeah, and we have a lot of players too. You got to think, like Durant hasn't played with a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't, until this year...
last season.
Yeah, until this year, he hadn't played a single game with Cantor. He hadn't played with Augustin since their days at Texas.
Or Kyle, any of those guys. Kyle Singler.
Yeah, no. Singler.
Granted, I don't think you'll have to play with Kyle Singler, but that was also something like that was kind of different about the lineups, is like he found a way to... You've got Westbrook and Durant, who are amazing, and instead of always having to have them out there at the same time, he found a way to like, hey, you know what? Westbrook's sitting right now, and Durant's leading the show. Now Durant's sitting down, and now Westbrook's leading the show, and they're getting rest. I mean, we never really did that much, unless foul trouble or sometimes the circumstance would call for it, and we would do it. But just to do it just because, we never did that.
Which I can't remember. You tell me. Did Durant play at all with Waiters? He played some with Waiters, didn't he, before he went out finally?
That's a good question.
Because we had Waiters for a while. We traded for Waiters earlier in the year, didn't we?
Yeah, well, I mean, it had to be before the deadline.
Well, I mean, but it was like the deadline was Cantor and all those other guys, wasn't it? Right at the deadline?
Yeah.
I think Waiters was before that.
Yeah, and I mean, even if he did, it was
a
only,
couple.
Yeah, it wasn't much.
Because, I mean, hell, just right now, just kind of live looking at things, hell, Waiters is our leading scorer right now in the game we're playing against Phoenix. So, and
that's something else. Like the national media looks at us like, well, we got Dwyane Wade. We've got to do something with him.
Yeah.
Who says who? I'm like, sorry, but he got kind of not kicked off his old team, but like they got rid of him for a reason.
Yeah. And you can't come here
and play him out. Yeah, and that too. Like
it was kind of like the situation with Reggie Jackson.
Yeah. Reggie
Jackson is at least apparently it appeared that he wanted to start. And the question is, who are you going to start over? You're not going to start over Russell Westbrook, dude.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're not playing you at the 2 all the time either.
Yeah, you're a decent player, but come on, man. You coming off the bench. I mean, and we'll see. Time will tell if building a team around Reggie Jackson is feasible because he's up in Detroit now. And I don't know. Well,
I mean, we saw him start for how long? Because Westbrook was out the first of last year.
Yeah, and
we saw him start. It didn't blow me away.
No, and it was kind of we kept our head above water enough to have a chance.
Sometimes not even that
at making the yeah. We had it. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of
like if he was so amazing, then I don't think we would have gone 500. Maybe we didn't do that. We were way down there in our record compared to where we usually are.
That's true. That's fair.
That was just, like I said, injuries.
And that was a strange thing with him because, I mean, I had really liked Reggie Jackson, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it was almost like he kind of was this prima donna. But and again, I'm not trying to.
It depends on the player sometimes.
Yeah, and
it
I don't.
Really depends.
It just because it was strange. Like whenever Harden left, it was like it was a sob fest for all the Thunder guys. And I understand. They're
friends.
They're friends and stuff. Yeah. Well, hell, Reggie Jackson left. I mean, it was just kind of like
see you later.
See ya.
I mean, and he was really good for us too. He was a great backup point guard.
Well, yeah, hell,
we drafted him.
Yeah,
or if we had we didn't draft him, we
drafted him.
Okay,
we drafted him. I'm pretty sure we drafted him.
Because the only reason I say maybe because sometimes we draft a guy and it's like a trade on the first step. But I think you're right. Yeah, we drafted him. And
yeah, I'm pretty sure we drafted him.
He was on a rookie contract. It was about to come up, and he knew that.
Yeah.
And we knew that, of course.
Yep.
And we did the same thing we did with Harden. He had one last year, and we might have moved him earlier if say Westbrook didn't go down with injury. Maybe we moved him earlier. Because Westbrook going down, it's like, man, we kind of need you now.
Yeah.
But say he doesn't go to injury, maybe we shop him around before that. Either way, he left town.
Yeah, and
we got rid of him.
And I've got no problem with the guy, trying to go get more money somewhere else. If he feels he can be a starter somewhere, that's great.
Yeah.
What I didn't understand was and again, I've never talked to the guy, so I don't know. Yeah. But it seemed he had this chip on his shoulder that he should be starting in Oklahoma City. And that made no sense to me. Like,
I don't know if he thought he should be starting here, because like you're saying, you legitimately think you're going to start over.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why. That's like where he kind of like where there was all this supposed, him being disgruntled with his role in the organization. Like in the games following Westbrook's return, he was dissatisfied. He was all kind of on the bench, like sort of mopey and and then stuff about him. Getting into arguments with people and stuff like that about,
and that might just speak to him. I mean,
and I mean, he kind of left here, and I was like, man, what happened to Reggie Jackson?
Like, get real, dude. I mean,
you're
not starting over Westbrook, and like I said, you didn't exactly blow us away.
Yeah, he's not a bad player, but it's like, dude, Westbrook's like
amazing.
Yeah, there's a level. I mean, in my opinion, okay, let me just give you my personal opinion. LeBron James is a great and a phenomenal player. One of the best ever. Kevin Durant is a great player. But I think right now, like right here, right now, the best player on the planet is Russell Westbrook, in my opinion.
I mean, even if you don't want to be that bold and say that, you got to at least say he's top 5 in the league.
Yeah.
He's a top 5 player.
I personally think he's the best. Now, granted, I ain't trying to take anything away from LeBron because LeBron can make you question. Like he can make me
LeBron
question
anymore, man. Think about Anthony Davis.
But I'll say this.
And he's not even got his game down yet. He's only, third year?
Sure.
But we're already saying that.
That's how
good that guy could be.
I'm reserving judgment on Anthony Davis. Not that he's not going to be great, but is he going to be great enough to... Well, one of two things. I mean, one can be his fault and the other's not his fault. Is Anthony Davis good enough? Is Anthony Davis going to turn into like a Carmelo sort of player? Where no matter what kind of team you put him on, he gets his stats, and he's always got big stats, but they never do anything. They never go to the playoffs, or if they do, they never go very deep. Or
I think that depends.
Now, that's what I'm saying. Are they going to build a team around him? Is New Orleans going to spend money to build a team around him, and then we'll see what he does? I don't think Anthony Davis is like Carmelo. I'm just saying...
Well, why not?
Well, just his mentality. He doesn't seem to have... Carmelo Anthony has always struck me as sort of I'm going to run my contract, and then when my contract's up, I'm just going to go get wine and dine, but then I'm going where the most money is.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
Yeah, like I'm just going to go get wine and dine, make me feel like, we really want you, and that's fine. Hey, the dude's earned the right because he's an incredible player. However, I have to wonder, dude, like, man, Carmelo Anthony, it's almost like, when LeBron going from Cleveland to Miami. Not that LeBron was the man in Miami, and he's still the man. He was the man in Cleveland. He's the man in Miami. He's the man back in Cleveland now. But as much as people talk about how Dwyane Wade had to take a back seat to LeBron and Chris Bosh, there were also, a lot of games where LeBron had to take a reduced role because if Dwyane Wade had a hot hand or Chris Bosh did, LeBron James, I think, grew up a little bit to be like, I'm going to pass it to you. I'm
That's
not going to be
basketball too.
Yeah, but see, I don't think Carmelo Anthony's ever been that guy. Like,
yeah, no.
You tell me this, man. In his time in Denver and his time in New York, can you name anybody else that's ever had a big game there? I can't think of anybody he's ever played with.
Danilo Gallinari.
Yeah, I mean, I can't.
Well, he might not have played with him, but
I just can't think of anybody.
Denver.
You think of LeBron, and you're like, okay, LeBron, dude. LeBron's played on teams with, hell, before he left Cleveland, Vera Zhao.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember the other guy's name they would have big games. You go to Miami, dude. He played, with guys like Bosh and Wade. Chalmers would have some big games. There's another guy too. Birdman. Hell, Birdman would come out of nowhere and be like,
great role player.
Yeah, and some games it'd be like Birdman's the hottest hand on the team.
Yeah, and like I said, he's just a role player.
Yeah,
that's pretty good for that.
It's kind of one of those. Is Anthony Davis, and I think he can be. I mean, it's too early to say anything really to have much of an opinion about it. Really, the thing I have the strongest opinion about is that dude needs to shave the unibrow. Really, I don't know why. I don't think that's happening. I think he's just owned it, and he's like, that's my trademark now. But.
And, this is some of the stuff where it's like, this doesn't really get talked about much. Like the rest of the league. We talk about the Thunder a lot, and, like, we internalize it very much.
Sure.
And that's great. And, a lot of the stuff we just talked about has been hammered out quite a bit.
Yeah.
But, what does that mean in the context of the rest of the NBA? Like you're talking about. Like, what about this other player?
Yeah.
What is he good enough? Is he good enough? Or is he, kind of, like he's just pretty good? Or is he great? There's a fine line between being great and really good. Well, and even in the lines like you're talking about, like where are they going to put a team around him? Well, they can put a pretty good team around him, or are they going to put another star with him and some decent role players? That's a huge difference too. Where it's like, you've got a pretty good team around you, but
who else do they even have right now
on the Pelicans?
Yeah,
they have Drew Holiday.
Okay.
That's he's okay, yeah, but he's had some injury issues.
Sure.
Tyreek Evans, that's
okay.
He's okay. Had the same thing. Had some injury issues, but he kind of came on last year.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I just kind of look at it like you're saying. I mean, we can just sit here all day and at night and talk about the Thunder, but who's going to come out of the West? There's so many teams. The West is so crazy. Like,
you have to say the Warriors. Obviously,
yeah,
I mean, like a lot of people want to write them off. I'm sorry, but they are the favorite to win it again.
Yeah,
they're the defending champion.
Yeah.
Plus, they were just that good. I mean, I know Cleveland had some injuries and problems like that, but they were that deep. I mean, they had guys sitting on the bench that were like, "Oh, we didn't even need you, but you're pretty good."
Yeah, and was David Lee.
Got rid of David Lee. Yeah. Didn't play Bogut much there in the finals.
No. And Steph Curry's just playing out of his mind.
Yeah, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and that was the big. Iguodala was the MVP. I mean, he only averaged 6 points, I think, the whole finals. But sometimes it's not about the stats. It's like he was just that guy that got it done for you.
He was turning in big defensive performances.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, you could say with the West, so many teams. There's us. There's the Warriors.
The Spurs are scary.
The Spurs are always the Spurs.
Yeah, and I think they're with
the Clippers.
Aldridge.
Yeah, with Aldridge. Oh, I mean, great. You only got a better guy.
And who was the guy that signed on there? Like he could have taken, he turned down $12 million to play for
David West.
Yeah, vet minimum.
Yeah.
To play in San Antonio.
Yeah, I'll come off the bench and make next to nothing compared to what I should be making.
But because he wants that ring.
I'm on the Spurs. Yeah,
I want a ring.
I mean, that to me, that's where NBA is going now. It's way more towards, man, I like stability. I like having a good team around me, like you're talking about with Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
And, it's not just about, well, are you in New York? Are you in LA? Well, then we start there, and then we talk about where I'm playing. No, it's about winning.
Yeah.
People like to win.
Sure.
They want to win a championship, or like with Harden, be the guy, whatever that is. They want that.
And it's kind of actually to touch kind of back at something that I mentioned way earlier, which is about Westbrook and Durant. are they going to stay here? And everybody talk. I mean, people talk like there's nothing to do in Oklahoma City. He could go play on LA, and it's LA, okay, fair enough. Oklahoma City compared to LA, that if you're a young man, there's
no comparison.
But guys like Russell Westbrook seem to me like when the season's on, I want to be totally focused on basketball.
It doesn't matter where you're at.
And then, and when the season's over, I'm sure Russell Westbrook, I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure that guy spends a lot of his time on the West Coast in the off-season.
And you got to think they like the whole laid-back atmosphere.
Yeah, it's a different kind of world out here. You don't have a huge, just, tons of media constantly all up in your business, up your nose and up your ass about every single little thing that you're doing. I imagine guys in positions like that would enjoy that. It's not anonymity, but
some people want it, some people don't.
Yeah, some people, but neither of those guys strike me as like camera hogs. You know, like I want the spotlight on me. I want the glitz and the glamour and all that kind of thing. They don't necessarily strike me that way. So, I mean, personally, I think we're going to re-sign both of those guys. And
I think you're right.
And I think
bet money.
And plus, we nobody can offer them as much money as we can. At the end of the day,
they can offer them a max, but is that max exact?
But we can always give them an extra year, right?
Well, I think one of them. That's a little iffy. Like they can actually get maybe a 5-year somewhere else too, for maybe on a team that already has a 5-year, but it's still not. Their 5 years wouldn't match our 5 years.
Yeah,
you're right about that. But some people have always brought up the argument, well, it's not always about the money because look at a player like Durant. And he's got endorsements and things like that where it doesn't matter. Well, I mean, you could take the flip side of that argument. Like, well, if it doesn't matter, then why would he need to go somewhere else to get the bigger money anyway?
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Like, a lot of people don't think about that. They like the laid-back atmosphere of Oklahoma City.
Yeah, like I think a lot of people nationally just think, well, of course they're going to leave Podunk, Oklahoma City.
Yeah, especially if you're not from here. I can totally understand you thinking that.
But and also I don't understand it though because
it's just the league has never worked that way, really. You always want to go to those big ticket places, and one of those big ticket places is one of the most winningest franchises in the sport, the Lakers.
The Lakers, yeah.
So it's like you get both. Why wouldn't you want to go there? But that's changed now. I mean, it's not like there's a hard cap, but with the sort of salary cap that they have with the new adjusted luxury tax,
LA isn't even king of their own state anymore.
No, it's like, why would you want to go to a team and like, man, I'll go there, and now I'm playing with nobodies.
They're not even playing second fiddle in their own state.
No,
I
understand.
The Warriors
and
the Clippers. I mean, it's like you said, it's kind of a sea change.
Yeah.
With
there was free agents this year that were like, I could go to New York or I could go to this team like Greg Monroe. He's like, I could go to Milwaukee, and they're young and up and coming and have a great system and are on the up and up, or I could go to New York just because New York is New York and they've got money and I mean that's it. I'm like, who wants to do that? They want a little bit more than that. Plus, you got to think, you go to a place like that and what do you get? You get extra criticism.
Sure.
Because you're in those places, and when you don't do good or don't do well, man, it's a lot of pressure on you.
And plus, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the difference between a big market and a small market team, I mean, Oklahoma City can still throw around a decent amount of money. Now, admittedly, yes, we are a small market team compared to the Lakers. We're not the smallest market.
Well, talking about that, it doesn't really even matter about the market sometimes. Sometimes it's just how much money does the owner want to throw around?
Sure.
And if you're the owner that wants to spend that and is fine with it, then you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And some people they're kind of chintzy and they're like, nah, I don't think so. I don't care how well we're doing or what I should do, or maybe I should overspend a little bit. That's just not what we do. Franchise that's like that, Chicago. Chicago's like, what, the third biggest market in the country? They don't go over anything. Yeah. They don't go over the line. No, they're like, no, we don't do that. They'll get rid of players that are good and just say, see you later, and you go get overpaid somewhere else. And that's maybe that's a Midwestern attitude. They're a little more tighter with their belt as far as their money goes and things. Whatever the case, each organization is different.
Sure.
And I think that plays in like what you're talking about, like with the Spurs. People go to the Spurs not because the market. It's like we're going to compete here. They're a basketball team. Some places are not basketball teams, even though they have a basketball team. The Knicks right now. Yeah. Right now they've got, hey, we signed Phil Jackson and he's a big name, and we put 5 guys on the court at the times we need to. And
when the biggest
we're running the triangle and whatever, it doesn't even mean anything. They just suck.
I think it means something. It says a lot when the biggest story surrounding your franchise is not any of your players.
Yeah, the guy running it.
It's your GM or your team president or whatever.
And is he even running it?
I don't even know what is it. What's his face is running it, right? He used to play for the Thunder.
Derek Fisher's the
Derek
coach.
Fisher's,
yes.
Yeah. So,
Phil's collecting them checks right now.
Yeah.
That's basically all he was doing last year. He's like, hey, thank you very much. Yeah, we're turning things around, guys. I'm saying all the right things. We're going to run the triangle and do whatever that means, man.
Yeah.
I think you're winning maybe 15 games this year. See you next time.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And to be a player to where you're like, gee, I'm just going to jump in that because.
Well, and plus, you got to think.
It's a big market.
Just looking at markets, hell, Memphis has stayed relevant for how long? And that I think Memphis is the smallest market NBA team.
I think you're right.
Quote unquote.
It's either that or technically New Orleans maybe sometimes follow that. Okay. That might just be attendance. I'm not sure. But
yeah, I don't know. I think I saw a list that had said that Memphis
they're not up there.
Yeah, they're definitely down there.
They're down there with us.
Actually, I think it's surprising. I think Oklahoma City isn't quite as small of a market as a lot of people would think. Like, I saw a list, and let me try to find it, which, by the way, I did fact-check you, and Scott Brooks was indeed a pro for 14 years.
Yeah, he played.
He played for the Albany Patroons in the CBA for a year, and then he played for the Fresno Flames for a year in the WBL. And then, dude, he went from the 76ers to the Timberwolves to the Rockets to the Mavericks to the Knicks to the Cavaliers from 1988 to 1998. And then he ended his career, looks like he took 2 years off and then ended his career playing for the Los Angeles Stars in the ABA. And then he started coaching. He was an assistant at those same Stars.
Worked his way up.
And then he worked his way up through the Southern California Surf in the ABA, then the Denver Nuggets, Sacramento Kings, and then as an assistant on the Seattle Supersonics, then the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Because who did we have that first year? We fired him. Was it Carlissimo?
Carlissimo.
Yeah.
PJ Carlissimo.
Yeah.
Most notably known for getting choked by Latrell Sprewell. That would be on my business card if I were him. Choked by Latrell Sprewell. But anyway, you're right, though. He was a NBA champion in 1994 with the Houston Rockets. So
thank you, taking a year off, Michael Jordan.
Yep. Appreciate it. But yeah, so I stand corrected there. I did not know that he was a pro at all. But I'm going to look up now and see exactly where Oklahoma City falls in. But my point being is that people think well, these guys are young guys, and so they're going to want to go party and, just do all kinds of crazy shit during the season. And I don't think...
Or maybe Westbrook's good enough. He needs to go have his own team.
Which, I will not argue ever that you could build a team around Westbrook. No problem.
Yeah,
hey,
of course.
If Durant leaves, maybe that team is the Oklahoma City Thunder. But I don't think Durant's going to leave. But people act like that these young guys, there's no reason to want to be here. And I'm like, I get it that, yeah, it's not the glitz and glamour of LA, but I'm pretty sure Russell Westbrook just did some fashion show right before the season started out in LA. He's big in fashion.
They do whatever they want.
Yeah, on the off season, I think guys like that are like, dude, when I'm in Oklahoma City, I can just focus on basketball. There's not nearly the distractions here, and I want to focus on basketball.
Are you actually here during the season a lot of times anyway? When you're on a 2-week stretch playing 5 games out of 7 out of town anyway, are you in Oklahoma City? No. You're on the road.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't think about that. The NBA schedule is very demanding. It's not like you're just hanging out in Oklahoma City the whole time going, gee, there's nothing to do. What am I going to do here? Well, I got to just live the life in OKC because there's nothing to do. Well, That's just not how it works. There's all sorts of things that, especially young people nowadays, that they do, and people are a lot more interconnected with social media and, like you said, doing things in the off season, going to places.
And you got to think. I mean, I think more so than any sport, of the major sports anyway. Maybe I don't know much about soccer, so maybe it's the same. I don't know. These guys are playing basketball most of the damn year.
Yeah.
I mean, between the NBA season, summer league, and whenever the Olympics or Worlds are rolling around,
some of them are doing that.
And yeah, I mean,
even if they're not involved in that, like, you've got to stay in shape. It's not like they just season's over, let's hit the couch and.
Yeah, and I don't think any of those professional athletes really do that a lot. You don't hear a lot about. I mean, you hear stories from time to time about guys showing up overweight and stuff, but usually. But I just, as far as the actual, because you don't, football players. As far as I know, football players aren't playing pickup games of football in the off season.
No,
they're not playing in some summer league in football. They have the preseason for that.
Exactly.
You don't hear about baseball. Baseball, they do have spring training, which, admittedly, spring training goes on for a bit. So. But baseball is nowhere near of a. Baseball is a wear on you, in my opinion, because it's so long.
Sometimes you play 2 games in one day.
Yeah, it's not as physically demanding as, say, basketball, football, hockey.
Yeah, basketball. Sometimes you're playing one night, and you play till 9 or 10 o'clock that night. You hop on a plane. However many hours later, in the middle of the night, you get to where you're playing, and say you sleep 6 hours. Well, it's already the next morning. You got shoot around. You're playing again already. By the time you even think about it, you're turning around, and it's the next day. You're playing another game, and then you might do the exact same thing. Well, we got maybe a night off, and then but we got to fly back, and then we're playing another game at home that night, and then we're taking off and flying out again, or even if you're not flying out again and you're at home, you're still sticking around. Playing another game. You're just playing. You're playing constantly. That's why a lot of these, you hear about a lot of these players getting into trouble, and it's, they're at a nightclub. Well, they didn't get anywhere until 3 a.m. anyway. They're not on everyone's schedule.
Sure.
They're on their own schedule.
Yeah.
And that might mean them being up at 4 o'clock at night. I know that sounds odd to people who get up at 9 to 5 and work 9 to 5, but that's just what these people do.
Yeah. And, just to kind of. This is a Reddit post I'm looking at here, and it's basically saying, not to be confused with fan base sizes, here's the ranking of NBA media markets by population according to Nielsen. The top 2 are the Knicks and the Nets, with a huge media market population is 19,995. The very bottom is the New Orleans Pelicans at 1,559. So Memphis is right above that, and then Oklahoma City is next, then San Antonio. So that's the bottom 4 right there. Bottom 4. Milwaukee Bucks. But as you go down, I mean, if we just look at the last handful of champions, I mean, let's see. The Golden State Warriors are number 9. Who else has won a title? Miami. Where's Miami? Miami's number 19.
Bottom half. They're not near the top.
So I mean, yeah, it's kind of Cleveland is 17, so pretty much the same as Miami. I mean, some of these big markets that aren't doing jack are. I mean, right now, L.A., the Lakers and Clippers, they're 3 and 4.
Not going to be relevant for a while.
Yeah, the Clippers.
2.
The Clippers are relevant.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
The Lakers, no. The Bulls are, like you said, the Bulls are number 5.
Yeah.
If there weren't those other, if there weren't multiple teams in New York and LA, they would be number 3.
Yeah.
The Toronto Raptors, number 6. So
it's a big city.
It's a big city.
Yeah.
Philly is next, the 76ers. And you got Dallas. Dallas at 8, which Dallas won a title, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Something like that. Houston Rockets at 10. Celtics at 11. And then you got Atlanta, Washington, Detroit. Detroit and Minnesota are tied. No, they're not. Okay, Detroit is 14, Minnesota's 15. Then you got Phoenix. But, I mean, you got to think, let's see. And then for fun, that's kind of neat. There's the next top 10 biggest markets without an NBA team and ranking where they would fit if they got one. Montreal would be number 15 on the list if they had a team. Seattle would be 16.
Sorry, Seattle.
Yeah, sorry, Seattle. Don't worry. You got the Seahawks. You won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. You got something.
Yeah. It's a little surprising. Like, there's some bigger. Like, I figured some places would be bigger markets that aren't. I mean, like, St. Louis would be number 23. They'd be right there with Portland.
Yeah,
It's a little surprising.
Yeah.
But okay, so. I mean, we've kind of rambled on about the NBA for a while. I guess let's just for fun's sake, who's coming out of the West for you? Who's coming out of the East?
Like if I had to nail one
right
team
now,
down.
Yeah, gun to your head, you got to say who's coming out of the West.
Well, if I'm biased, I'm saying the Thunder. I'm sorry,
okay.
but I'm not biased.
But I think you can make a really good argument for the Thunder coming out of the West.
Well, yeah, you know why? Because when we have been healthy, you know how many playoff series we've lost? 0. Except to the Heat when we were in the finals.
Yeah,
that was it.
Harden just kind of disappeared.
Yeah, and that's what Harden does.
Yeah.
That'd be my criticism of Harden. We could probably spend a whole podcast on that, talking about the criticisms of Harden and the ins and outs of that trade and what he does with Houston and all that. But if I had to, God, it's tough. But I gotta right now. I don't want to do it. I don't want to, but I have to say the Warriors.
Okay.
Just because you gotta give props to the defending champs,
and they're undefeated.
Yeah.
So far this season,
well, not only that, last year they didn't just win a lot of games last year. They won like a historic amount of games last year.
Yeah.
So you gotta tip your hat to that. Granted, here's my bias.
They didn't run into a healthy Thunder team.
That too.
Nobody did.
But anytime we played them before that, we win.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you very much. But we beat them before.
Yeah.
So that's why they play the game. And we'll find out this year. I hope maybe we're healthy and we come across them and we handle them.
Okay. So who's coming out of the East?
Out of the East, I mean, that's Cavaliers.
Yeah.
You might say the Bulls.
Yeah.
That could happen, especially depending on health.
Yeah,
with Cleveland, because Cleveland isn't exactly healthy.
Yeah.
I'd say a dark horse, maybe Miami. Miami's got some good pieces.
Yeah, Whiteside, man, he's killing it.
Dragic's not a pushover.
No.
Bosh is not a pushover. D Wade's not a pushover.
Yeah.
I mean, but past that, you're hoping. You could say the Wizards, maybe the Wizards.
I haven't heard shit about the Wizards this year, though. How are they even doing?
I mean, they're always good. That John Wall's great. Bradley Bill's, he's kind of.
Who's that center they have?
They have the Polish Hammer, Gortat.
Gortat, yeah, Marcin Gortat, yeah.
And he's all right. They have
Nene,
off the bench, that type of thing. But they are improved. They're a pretty good team, and especially in the East, they're a really good team. But I don't think they're going to make it to the finals.
Yeah.
They'd be happy getting to the conference finals.
So you think it'll be the Warriors out of the West, the Cavs out of the East. Who wins?
Warriors.
Even a fully healthy Cavs team.
Yeah, I think even a fully healthy Cavs team. Yeah, I would still take the Warriors.
Okay.
Just because their depth is still better than the Cavs.
My opinion isn't as well informed as yours, but I'm gonna say I'm gonna be a homer and say the Thunder come out of the West, and the Cavs come out of the East, and Oklahoma City still has to slay Darth Vader, and that would be
take them down.
That would be taking down LeBron, revenge for what they couldn't do several years ago.
I know.
And
we never could get back there either.
Yeah, never could get back.
Never could get back. Damn health issues and injuries but that's 90% of who really makes it through the season.
Sure. Who
really gets through a series.
Yeah.
Or like you're saying, out of the West to the finals in the first place, or even to the conference finals. You're like, man, if that team was healthy, well, that's not how the game's played. If we could have had this guy, then yeah, sure, but
yeah.
That's part of life in basketball.
And we'll revisit this kind of
we're going to revisit this a lot.
Yeah, as the season goes on, we may change and be like, whoa, the Thunder stink, or,
or just random
or the
other
Warriors
things,
don't look so hot against the big, like, say, the Warriors play the Thunder and the Thunder just thump them. Then,
or vice versa.
Or vice versa. And then I may, one of us may change our tune and be like, well, I'm going to go with, in a 7-game series, it looks like the Thunder are going to beat the Warriors, or, like you said, vice versa. So, was there anything else NBA related that you wanted to talk about?
I mean, not really. I mean, there's also, I could talk about it all day long. You know that. But,
okay, well, we got other podcasts for that at least.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything else in general?
No, I mean, I think this was probably a pretty good
initial
foray
into.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just like like you said, we're gonna get into all sorts of things.
Yeah, and I mean, at least as it stands right now, we don't have any sort of particular framework for what we're going to talk about from podcast to podcast. Eventually, we may have some sort of itinerary, like,
We're amateurs.
Yeah, exactly.
We're amateurs. We are not experts at this by any means.
This is us cutting our teeth right now. So we'll and we'll definitely be talking about some, compared to sports, some very off the wall, random shit.
Yeah, like I said, you could go into all sorts of things.
The next podcast, we may talk all about politics.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of politics to talk about right now.
You like politics, I like policy.
So there you go.
There you go. There's local stuff that I don't think's ever really talked about much. And that's kind of like why we like doing this, is because there's just not a lot out there for Oklahoma in general.
Yeah.
I think. I think there, I'm not saying something's just not covered at all, but especially for a state that is getting bigger and growing, and, like, to use the Thunder as an example, like, hey, we're getting that's a national type of thing.
Before it was just the Sooners.
Yeah, and that's like...
And that's something we haven't talked about either.
Yeah, like, we're both Sooners fans, like, OSU's actually undefeated right now. Like,
OSU looks like the class of the state now.
But those things, like, take time, and, like, even like, saying OSU's undefeated, like, well, they've got to enter themselves into the national conversation, and even then, people still ignore them. Because, we're, like with the Thunder, we're Oklahoma, people are going to turn that, that blind eye to us.
It's flyover country, man. It's flyover country.
There you go. It's a flyover state.
So, and that's fine. Whatever. I mean, but we can talk more about all that kind of stuff later. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for now.
Yeah. And, if people want to get a hold of us.
Yeah, it's ufppodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, that's our email.
So any critiques, suggestions, whatever you want.
Things we're wrong about.
Yeah, fact check us too. I know I'm probably gonna spout off some serious hyperbole from time to time. So feel free to call me out on it.
That's what makes it more interesting too. Sometimes people bring up a point or a topic.
And if we get a particularly interesting or, relevant email, we've got no problem reading it on the next podcast to say, hey, if you don't want us to say, obviously we won't say your email address, but if you include a name, if you don't want us to mention it, we can just keep it, some random.
I love hate mail too. Make me laugh. Come on.
Yeah. What's the saying? There's no such thing as bad publicity or whatever.
That's right.
So yeah. Well, with all that said, we're going to go ahead and sign off for now. So once again, I'm Drew.
I'm Brad.
And this has been the Unidentified Flying Podcast. See you next time.